All right, court will resume here with the March 22nd, 2022 docket. And good afternoon, everybody. Uh,
Hello, Judge.
yes, sir. Good afternoon. And we have Luis Lauro Solis.
That's correct, Judge.
Uh,
I don't represent Mr. Solis. I represent Eloisa Chapa.
Signing
Eloisa.
it.
Yes,
Eloisa. Did I hear Chapa?
yes. That's and then the law offices. I'm at home and Mr. Castillo's at the house. I mean, at my house, at the office, Judge. And
Mhm.
Mrs. Chapa is on standby only because, Judge, there was today we learned that there was an answer that had been filed by Mr. Greg Lopez. So I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I was trying to get his cell number, but I wasn't able to do that. But we still
Okay.
have an ex parte request, at least a temporary request.
So Greg Lopez is file an answer.
That's what I understand, Judge, and that's why I had Mr. Castillo on the phone. I mean, on the, and we were just asking for a temporary suspension or modification of the visits. There he is.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Mr. Lopez is already checking in. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Lopez.
How are you?
Yes, sir. How you doing? You filed an answer on this one, right?
I did, Judge. Well, I filed
Yeah.
a notice of appearance, hoping maybe we could resolve some with Mr. Salinas today, but
Oh, okay. Okay. And first of all, we're here on the March 22nd, 2022 docket, and we're on F0893-18-4, and we're here on temporary orders or our TRO. And okay. And Mr. Salinas, you were hoping to discuss something with Mr. Lopez?
Well, really, Judge, the only thing I wanted to do today, I can't imagine Mr. Solis or Mr. Lopez would agree to, is some kind of a temporary abatement on the visits. There's an affidavit that's attached to the petition to modify that was filed by Mrs. Chapa.
Huh?
I didn't ask Mrs. Chapa to be here only because I only learned that Greg had made an appearance. So I didn't know if I needed to pull her from work because she had 1 hour conference period she teaches.
Okay.
But the affidavit is somewhat self-explanatory. The only thing I would add, Judge, is if there were phone calls made by someone by the name of Valerie to my client, and I think that if we had a hearing today, I think that she would testify as to what the discussion was. And there seems to be some issues concerning the 7-year-old and her problems with visiting with dad. And I don't think it's so much dad. I think it may be another relationship he may be engaged in that may be causing some problems. The counselor at school was advising my client about the situation and what the child was going through. I don't mind passing it today, Judge, but I don't want my client to be held in contempt or violating some kind of order. I don't know if the court would entertain a temporary abatement of those visits until we can have a hearing, or I can talk to Greg about that and tell him what some of the issues are. No more than 14 days, because even if you granted it, Judge, I mean, even if you granted it without Mr. Lopez being on board, I couldn't get it for more than 14 days anyways.
Okay. Mr. Lopez?
all right, Judge. I'm going to address what Mr. Salinas said. No, my client would not agree to not seeing his daughter. However, I understand the situation today that his client is not present, but I want to be upfront with the court. I don't know what other issues there might be in this case or any other reason to stop visitation, but my client was arrested for domestic violence. I'll give you the date.
And
Just so
Judge, Greg, let me just help you out real quick, Judge, if I can address Mr. Lopez. I don't even think that's the issue, because I think that it,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think that is, Greg. We did mention it in it, but it's not something directly related to my client and the child. The thing is that apparently, and again, let me just say it and then we can have a hearing. I can call her to come in, or I don't know if I can do that now, but apparently there's some fighting that's going on at home. That's allegedly. If I had said that more often, Judge, when I was married, I'd be divorced less time,
Yeah.
right? If it just say, a friend of mine said, look, man, you keep saying it like it happened. Just say that this is the way you feel, right? So what's happening here is that apparently there's some domestic violence issues between Mr. Solis and a lady by the name of Valerie. My plan was to subpoena her, get her on here because she did make some admissions. She called my client. She called my client, and I think she answered because she thought that it was Mr. Solis. historically, to Mr. Solis's credit, he's had a relatively decent relationship with Mrs. Chapa. They've been able to get along, but there's some problems going on between him and Mrs. Valerie. And the child is exposed to some of that, and that's causing problems with the child. The child actually reached out to someone at school. So I don't know how to get it resolved. I don't know. I mean, the only good thing is that I know that they're not married. They may be cohabitating and living together. But I think that we would need to have a hearing on that. And the only reason I was saying abate the visits for now is till the court gets a real good idea, listening to both Mr. Solis, Mrs. Chapa, and maybe this lady, Ms. Valerie, if I can find her and get her served to show up, because it is causing a significant amount of stress for the 7-year-old, to the point that his relationship with Miss Valerie, again, just the way I feel, allegedly may be causing some stress on his relationship.
What were the visitations? What were they currently?
My client has visitation, standard as per the family code, Judge.
Right.
The parties were divorced May 30th, 2018.
Mhm.
And, my client and I met this past Saturday to go over, any problems with visitation. There were some issues with visitation this year, but, he's attributing it to COVID. Both, I think the little girl had COVID at some point. My client and his girlfriend had COVID at a different time period. And then my client was arrested because of an alleged fight between him and Valerie. They're still living together. They were able to set aside, or should I say request, that the protective order be set aside, the one issued by the Hidalgo municipal judge. But I thought that was going to be the basis of this TRO, that arrest in itself.
No.
But
I think what it is, Greg, it's just corroborating evidence of what the little girl has been telling the counselor, that she's got toys there that apparently are being used again. This is what allegedly was going on. The toys get tossed around between this couple, between Mr. Solis and Mrs. Valerie. The little girl stuck in the middle of all this violence. So she doesn't want to go see dad. Now, I don't think it's because Mr. Solis, again, I'll go back. I think when he was on his own, there wasn't any issues. I didn't see any. But recently, she did talk to a counselor. The other thing is this, Judge, is that Miss Valerie, again, not Mr. Solis, and I don't mean to disrespect Mr. Solis, but Miss Valerie's made a series of phone calls to my client. There's even been some text messages that we suspect were sent to my client that weren't without Mr. Solis knowing. Mr. Solis has made it clear to my client that he can't talk to her unless she's present. So the relationship that he's currently in, again, with all due respect to Mr. Solis, is a very volatile relationship, and that it's not an environment conducive to a 7-year-old, Judge. And that's the problem. I think that it is with a great degree of hesitancy and maybe sadness. I don't think Ms. Chapa wanted to file this, but she was in essence told by the school that if she didn't and continued to allow these visits, that there would be some consequences to her. I know, and Greg knows, probably not, okay? I think it would take more than that, but I think it is having some psychological effect on this 7-year-old because of what's going on there. How do we fix it? I don't know, Judge. Probably something that me and Greg can get together on. I don't know how to explain it, but the little girl's articulate. Again, we got turned on to this because of what happened at school. And I don't think Ms. Valerie would deny that she's had these conversations with my client. My client, Ms. Chapa, was kind of taken back by the fact that she would call her. And she also indicated to her, and again, I don't know, again, I know we're on the record, but I'll say this much. Apparently, she's alleging, Ms. Valerie's alleging, or has told my client that there was an incident where Mr. Solis may have committed some kind of adultery. I don't believe that that's possible when you're not married, but hey, other people see it differently. Maybe Ms. Valerie does. And that's what started this. There's been problems with Mr. Solis at work as well. I think he knows that. I think that his employer had threatened to file some kind of injunction to keep Ms. Valerie away. And this is, I think Mr. Solis is a very young 46-year-old man. And his current significant other, Mrs. Valerie, is like 28. So those are issues. And I know I would agree, Mr. Solis, that there are probably women out there that are very mature for 28, but there seems to be every indication, Judge, that this Valerie is not. So, I mean,
Okay.
we wouldn't know about the environment at home, but for the fact that Miss Valerie has called my client and told her about it. We have the issue at the school. We have Mrs. Chapa, and we have obviously some of the statements that were made by Mr. Solis. So in a nutshell, I've kind of given it all to you, Judge.
All right, Judge. Well, there's a lot of things here that need to be fleshed out. It doesn't seem to be complaints about my client in particular, but my client does live with Valerie. And, if Valerie needs to testify, go ahead and subpoena her, Mr. Salinas, but I'm sure she's available to testify even without a subpoena.
Okay.
So
When is the next visit?
we want to reestablish visitation, Judge. We have the first, third, and fifth of every month, if it weren't, for this restraining order that's in place right now. And I'm gonna look at the calendar right now and
Yeah, what this weekend is what weekend is this coming up?
let's see. It's the fourth weekend this week.
So you don't get the visit, get the visit anyway.
No, we don't.
Okay. So
What I
then,
need to do, Judge, is get an order either extending the TRO or something. I don't know, Greg, I'm not asking him to agree to it, but I think it's important enough to Judge to flush it out. Again, I say that it was a heavy heart that Miss Chapa did this. I don't think she would have done it, but for the fact that someone at the school had mentioned to her that, hey, and again, she didn't tell anybody at the school. So it was a 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old's been describing to mom some of the things that are going on at the house. The child, Judge, had I think Mr. Solis can verify this. It had problems opening up and talking. That was something I think that her ability, it was delayed, I think, Yeah, and I think it was delayed. I'm not saying that Mr. Solis caused that. I'm just saying that there seems to be some suggestion that she's regressing into that mode, and we don't want that. And out of an abundance of caution, again, I know Mr. Solis, nothing, that incident with him and Miss Valerie, it's only corroborating information in the sense that it kind of tends to support the child's allegations that there's internal problems there. Mr. Solis, I'm sure, loves his daughter, but the problems are probably going beyond his control at this point.
Judge, if we have no problem with the court extending the TRO, but we would only agree to extend it up to next week because we want to reestablish visitation, hopefully after the court hears more evidence here. I don't know when we can have our next hearing, Judge.
well, let me see if I can get a date.
On the 31st at 10 a.m.
And that would be what?
Next Thursday
That'll be March 31st,
at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Mhm.
March 31st, 10 a.m. Extended
by
till
later,
then.
Can I look at that real quick? Because I don't want to commit myself to something and then.
And then by then, if you guys don't work it out, just find the other witness, Valerie, so we can hear testimony.
Well, that's
Valerie,
gonna be a heavy duty day, Judge. I hate to say that, but I don't know if there's any other days. Next week is kind of bad. On the 1st, which is Friday, I mean, I would be able to do it then, but if they're insisting on having this done next week, in all honesty, that would be difficult for me, Judge. Friday, I have a final pretrial with Judge Crane in the morning, but it seems to me that the afternoon is okay.
You're talking about April 1st?
April 1st, yes.
Okay.
Greg, I don't know if
What
that's
now?
okay with you. I'm not.
Monday the 28th?
Monday, the 28th, I am available, Judge.
Would that be morning or afternoon? 10 a.m.?
I'm available, Judge.
Yeah, we could do it Monday, the 28th, Judge. That would be a
March
lot better.
28th at 10 a.m.
And Judge,
That'll
without
work.
me having to look with, and I know that Mr. Solis or Mr. Lopez can't speak for her, but can she make herself available, Greg, or do I need to?
I think she can make herself available. She and my client live together, Judge.
Okay.
from what I understand from my client, they may be expecting a baby together. I mean, they're in a relationship. They've been
Okay,
Right.
living together for several months. And I mean, we're open to proposals, Mr. Salinas, but you know, if the problem narrows down to Valerie or Valerie's relationship with my client, I guess.
Yeah, I know. No,
I don't see how to
I
work that out.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's a tough, I don't know. I don't know if he still has the charges pending against him, Greg, on that other case.
That case
But-
is still pending, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're gonna be ordered, or he may be ordered under some kind of ADR or something to, I don't know if he's got a history. He doesn't seem to have problems, or at least doesn't seem to have problems with Mrs. Chapa. They've gone for the most part, the last 5 years with some, obviously, he doesn't make all the visits, which is understandable. Nobody, they're scheduled a certain way, but the only issue has been this problem. Now, I don't know how, maybe I need to get somebody to look at this little girl, Judge. I don't know if maybe they can agree to share the cost on that, have somebody look at this little girl. But apparently it was significant enough that the school had to bring it to Mrs. Chapa's attention. I don't know, Greg, if you got somebody that can talk quickly to, I don't know, Mr. Solis would be willing to share the cost in that. There's Dr. Gilantan, anybody, that can talk to her, maybe get us a quick, because we now know what the problem is. I mean, I guess we could even have a hearing on it. I don't see a lot of that being contested, Judge. And again, I'm not making his domestic issues with her an issue. It's only an issue because it tends to prove instead of disprove an allegation so I don't know if the court has anybody. There's Dr. Gilantan. I don't know if anybody could get to the 7-year-old quickly to offer a recommendation as to what these folks can do. I mean,
well, this week is pretty early still, so you got time to look for somebody. And but try to work it out, guys. If not, then we're gonna have the hearing March 28th.
I'm not asking the court to order anybody to pay for it now, Judge, but if the court could just reserve the right to have the court share the cost. It's their child, and maybe they need to get this little girl to somebody.
But of course, that order is not being entered today. All we're agreeing today is to come back on Monday at 10 a.m.,
Right.
Judge.
Right. But in the
Okay.
meantime, do some discussions. Maybe you can settle it.
Sure. I mean, I'm open to a suggestion, Mr. Salinas, if you
All
want
right.
to tell me or something, okay?
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying that's why I'm saying we may have to get her seen by a professional and they can guide us through this. I'm not asking the court to order Mr. Solis to pay half of it now, but I think
We'll leave it open.
we leave it open, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just talk about that on the 28th,
Okay.
depending. And Greg, I'll make that person, right now it's gonna be real tough because a lot of these guys are paying catch up. So one of the problems I'm gonna have is finding somebody to actually be able to see her. But if I do, I'll notify you.
Okay, perfect.
All right?
All right.
Right.
All right, folks. Then thank you all very much. You all my big excuse. Have a great
Judge,
day.